Hello guys, how you doing today? Welcome to another beautiful episode of the Leadership Podcast with me, Stephen Akintayo. And today I have a veteran, in the house. I've hosted her before on one of my shows called The Investment Chat in Rolls Royce, and it was amazing the nuggets she gave. It's one of the best episodes we had, because you would have expected someone who is in the entertainment industry to give those kind of nuggets. And today we're privileged to have her. I always say she reminds me of my late mom, as they kind of look alike in a way, Ladies and gentlemen, we have Joke Silva. How are you, man?
I'm very well, thank you, Stephen, and thank you for those compliments. I think that's an honor to remind you of your mom.
You're welcome. I told you last time too. I'm not sure you remember, but I told you.
Thank you so much.
I told you. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
So let's start. I mean, over 40 years, I believe so, now in the acting industry.
Oh, yeah. That's about 43.
43.
1981. Yeah.
1981. And then you started in the UK.
No. I started in Nigeria.
Nigeria, okay.
Yes. At the University of Lagos Cultural Center. They didn't have a creative department then. So it was the Cultural Center. They had a repertory company at the Cultural Center. And that's where I started.
Were you schooling there or you graduated?
No. I had come back home. I'd finished my A-levels in England.
Okay.
And I wanted to get into the University of Ibadan.
Okay.
And, I saw late... I went with my mom to see late Uncle Bayo Dune.
Okay.
And he said I was late. They had, we also tried different. I was late. So we said, okay, I'll try the following year, but let's fill the time with work, And so I had an uncle at in Unilag at the time, late Canon Olumide, who was at the Open University. So he introduced me to the Cultural Center. I had a short audition.
Wow.
And they liked my voice.
Wow.
They liked my Igbo.
Yeah, the British accent.
So, I had done speech and drama in
A-levels.
In A-levels.
Okay.
So when they took me on and we did two plays, The Exception and The Rule, and Omodo by Bode Osoyin, who was the artistic director of the Cultural Center.
Wow.
Yes.
Did you now go to Lagos University or you still went to Ibadan?
No. I spent a year in that. That was like late 80. And then, I just spent a year working in television. Somebody saw me in This Exception and The Rule, or one of them, and invited me to television.
Wow.
Whilst I was on television, I was working with late Didi Ogunbade. Wow. He was in radio, so he invited me to radio. Wow. Then from there, I got invited to the National Theatre under Edith Enem and late Garba Ashiwaju, who was the DG. Edith Enem was the artistic director. So within that 81, I was working consistently on all the platforms.
Wow.
But I had there was a hunger of wanting to know what I was doing properly, and that was where I met my husband.
Wow.
He came to work on Jero's Metamorphosis.
Okay.
Then and he said, so he said, why don't you go to drama school instead of going to university to study theatre arts? So I got training under the voice trainer of that time, Gordon Luck. Okay. He wrote the seminal book on voice at that time. And so I trained under him for auditions to get into drama school. You have to be, especially he was so competitive.
Yeah.
It was so competitive,
Wow.
So I tried for RADA, Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. I tried for several, but I remember RADA and I remember Weber Douglas, and I got a call back for RADA, but Rather for me was just so stiff and very, loud. I didn't particularly like it. I preferred Weber Douglas, and it was still one of the top 5 drama schools. My father was a bit disappointed that I didn't go to RADA. I didn't pick, but I really liked Weber Douglas.
Wow.
And so I went to drama school after that 1 year of working consistently. And then when I finished, and during that 1 year.
How many years in drama school?
Drama school was 2 years.
Okay.
So drama school is usually 2 years. You come out with a diploma.
Okay.
During that time, I started working at the BBC Radio.
Wow.
And in my final year, I worked at the Royal Court Theatre upstairs. Wow. It was a stint. I mean, they just gave me, I auditioned for a part, they gave it to me and all that. And then after they kept writing to me and saying, come and join the rep company at the Royal Court. But I wanted to come back home. I really wasn't a stay in London kind of person.
Yes.
So I didn't go to the University of Lagos until after I'd had my
diploma.
Second son. I was married. This was...
let's go back. Let's go back.
So I jumped. I'm just telling you that I went to Unilag with carrying my son then in 1988.
He advised you, your husband advised you to go to a drama school.
Yes.
But as a friend or as
a friend,
a suitor?
Yeah, as a friend, a suitor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
we had started dating then.
You started dating.
Yes,
so at what point did you now marry?
We got married in 1984.
1984?
Yes. Yes, it was 84. I was 24, so it was 1985. We got married
1985.
Yes.
So he was 20 years older than you?
2019, 20
years older.
10 of 10 years, yes.
So why did you accept?
I was in love with him. As simple as that. And, he was just a very gorgeous person. I remember one of my sisters, when he was home, I think it was 84.
Okay.
When, I had come back home and they met, and she called me aside and said, Joke, this is the man to take to daddy. Hey. That was Toyo Olawe.
Wow.
Said, yes.
Wow. In those days, did they had issues with the fact that I was older?
Yes, my dad did.
Okay.
My dad did. But my mom was like, well, this is the person they know me with, number one. And then her parents had that kind of age gap as well. So
okay. It wasn't
exactly as far as she was going, it wasn't a big deal, So yeah.
Wow. So you didn't change your name. Is there a reason?
He was the one who actually advised that I don't.
Okay.
Because he understood the importance of branding.
Okay.
And
by the way, those of you who may not know, we're talking about the sage Oluje Corsair, right? Because I'm sure some people still don't know.
Yeah, I know.
Some people still don't know. But please go ahead.
Yes. So he was like, I had started my brand had started building with Joke Silva and changing brands, several years after, one had been using that brand would be, as far as he was concerned, could cause problems for me, So we kept the name Joke Silva as the brand.
Yeah.
But, within the circle, there was nobody who didn't know I was Mrs. Jacobs.
Yeah. It didn't matter.
Yes, it really didn't matter. Yes.
Wow. Now, for you, the word leadership, at what point did it come to mind? And what was the earliest experience that you can say you're experiencing leadership?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. I think for me, leadership would be with my parents, my late mom, Dr. Abimbola Silva, my late dad, Chief Emmanuel Afolabi Silva. They were both leaders in their respective fields, highly respected in their respective fields.
Were they Lagosians?
So yes, my mom was Olugbo, Abeokuta and Olugbo of Lagos, and then my father was Kamposi, Gwangushe Kamposi. You know. So they were people that people within their circle highly respected and looked up to, and even within the family circle, the leadership that they gave, you know, holding the family together, and you know, even in their careers, the way they led the organizations to which they belonged to.
Yes.
My mother was the founding member of so many organizations.
Wow.
International Council of Women's International Women's Society, IWS.
Yes.
You know, Soroptimist International.
Yeah.
There was a women ladies dining club. I remember that very clearly. Yes, you know. So and then very also one of the early members of Nigerian Council of Women's Societies. You know, National Council of Women's Society. You know, so. And then my father was Lions Club, Metropolitan Club, and things like that. They were people who believed in the power of the collective. Yes, in the power of the collective to get things done, you know. So I would say that was my earliest recognition of leadership. Yeah.
But what would say the first leadership lesson you learned from your parent? My questions are making you to go back, right?
To go
I
really
can
far
imagine
back
because
I was a bit of a bully in school. And my mom would tell me of that. You don't bully people to do things you want. Don't beat anybody. Don't fight anybody today. This was in primary school, you know. So but also I think if you know, on a serious note, I think it would be when I was in secondary school. I was so into drama, and I loved, you know, I loved writing plays and getting my classmates together to perform, you know, either what I'd written or something from Shakespeare or something, you know. I just
in secondary school.
Yes, I'd just see something that I liked, you know, and I'd see how we could perform it. I remember late Bimbo Dukoya, she was my classmate, and we used to get off to all kinds of drama skits together, you know. And when my principal and Mrs. Margaret Chausson, she created the drama prefectship for me, you know, and I remember my mom saying then that that's a very responsible position, my dear. You know, you've got to handle it with respect for everybody that you work with, you know. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So I mean, if you look at the entertainment industry, I mean, you guys, yourself and your husband are literally some of the oldest leaders in that sector. Looking back,
we're not too.
Yeah, you are.
I mean, our industry goes way
I'm talking
back.
of those who are alive now. I'm talking of those who are alive, of course. But those who are alive, you guys are, we call them institutional memories, right? You carry that.
Ooh, I love that. Institutional memories.
Yeah, you carry institutional memory.
Yes.
What was there then that is not there now?
Stephen. I think the network was closer at that time, and there was a striving for excellence. I'll give you an example. When you see Ogunde's films, right?
About
Ogunde's films, Aye, they were shot on celluloid, right? And you see some of the stories that we produce. Now, I'm not saying all of them, but some of the stories and you're like, what's happening with our storytelling? Because we are incredible storytellers,
Yes.
The power of the story, So I think we need to get back to that. I would say that was missing. But on the other side, what this generation has going for it is
quality of production.
Is the archiving.
Oh, okay. That's true. That's
instant archiving of whatever it is that they do.
Yeah.
Because I think part of what militates against us now is the fact that people don't have a sense of history of what has been done in the past. That's why when you said to me that, some of the oldest, and I think I did, where do we then put Pao Bunde, Ladipo, all the Uncle Steve Rhodes, who ran some of the, one of the most important choral groups in Lagos society at the time, so that sense of history, because it's not there. But luckily for this generation, there's nothing that they produce that is not archived. Yes,
automatically.
Automatically.
No, it wasn't even they are doing, but it was just social media. All these digital platforms, are able to help. How about the place of the pay? There are arguments now about where do I even start from? You want to start from, is it the Netflix, the Amazon argument that some people have cornered those markets and artists not being paid? You could have argument about Netflix could pay you $2 million. You say you're going to pay X and Y, Z, so, and then you don't pay that. And another part of the argument is, why can't we even have our own version of platforms like that?
Exactly.
Now,
I think on that conversation, I think that conversation can go in two ways.
Okay.
Right. As an entrepreneur, which is what we are really in the entertainment industry. We're all entrepreneurs.
Yes.
We're self-employed. We're self-employed. Our work is projectized, right? So, if a Netflix decides that, okay, let me work with this group of people to start off with, and use that to kind of study how, not only study the market, also study what could be the next steps. Okay. Because there's very little support in other places, all right? The likelihood of saying that, look, I can't spend everything that I've gotten on one project. I need to put some aside so that I can do another project. Now, is that wisdom for an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
It sounds like wisdom.
Yes.
Do you understand?
Yes, absolutely.
Now, for an entertainer, for somebody who is looking for a particular kind of quality, that is saying that, okay, now I need to take you out from this territory.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
And take you global. Now, if I want to take you global, you need to have these kinds of quality in your work so that we can then take you
True.
Now, but when you're coming from lack, when you're coming from nothing, you're like, how, when, when is the next,
Yes.
So,
yes.
and when you're talking of lack, you're also talking of lack, not only financially, but infrastructurally as well.
True.
And some of the things that I've always said is that we have, all the NTA stations that seem not to be doing much. Why can't we convert those into studios, into studios, into sound stages, instead of wanting to build these huge things, or work with these existing ones, restructure them into sound stages, so that we can even see how you can run a proper facility like that, before you then start building this high, Anyway, so that's the way I see that.
Okay.
So that's the way I see that. That on one side, it's business sense. To not spend all the funds on one project, On the other side, you see it from the side of the person funding, and that's saying that I need this level of quality, and I don't want to hear rumors, because it then affects my own reputation.
Absolutely.
Apart from the quality, is the reputation that so and so is not getting paid what was expected.
But will you say that some of it are exaggerated from the actor's perspective as well, where we believe Netflix pay or Amazon paid this producer this amount, but this was the only amount I got, Do you think
there's something in business that they usually say that you're not paid what you're worth, you're paid what you negotiate. Do you understand? Yeah. So there's that. Do we, sometimes because as actors we want to work.
Yes.
Yes. And there are all sorts of let me say that there's supposed to be people in between, or professions in between you, the talent, and the producer, and your employing producer. So there should be an agent, there should be a lawyer, there should be an accountant, there should be all those before they get to you, so that you can then negotiate. And I think also we just need to have stronger guilds who will make sure that, okay, this person has gotten this job, then they're still in negotiation. It's not, I don't let me go there, because I don't know how that's going to work, but because there's always somebody else who will do it at
a cheaper price,
which doesn't all go well for the industry.
Yeah. But will you say that your generation, for example, didn't think of infrastructure early, didn't think of business? Because, Robert Kiyosaki put it as cash flow quadrant. So employee, self-employed, business owner, investor, right? So I think that, do you think the earlier generation of, you had the institutional memory now. So the earlier generation, did they stop at that either employee or self-employed, and they didn't quickly grow it into a business that has all the structure? Because when it's a business, that even some of what you're saying could have come in, right? A lawyer, there's a legal department, because we have a studio, we have merchandising, we have resorts, all these Ogunde plays, right? Disney, for example, isn't this generation, but because there's a Disney World, right? So all the plays are turned to merchandise, characters, resorts being built. The story has no choice than to remain, So do you think that generation, yours and those above you, probably didn't do those things, and maybe that's why, it's just that continuation.
You have a point. There was, because we were just struggling to survive.
I do.
Struggling to survive in an atmosphere that didn't
and there was discrimination,
recognize,
racism.
didn't recognize it as a profession. Didn't, it was always thought of as, the work of ne'er-do-wells, so that we could even get to where we are now, where it's such a robust industry. I mean, you couldn't think of it as an industry then, and a lot of the work was coming from NTA, and and NTA was producing some really good work. I mean, you'll find that the first generation of film producers,
it was NTA that was our Netflix.
Exactly. And a lot of people who became independent came from NTA.
True.
The business side came from when we started the home video revolution.
Okay.
When that started, that's when the business aspect started. Now, for many of the people who started the business side, they didn't see. Now they're working on location. What are the things that they need? They can go to somebody's house and shoot. So what are the other things that they need? They need somewhere for their cast, for their talents to stay. So what do I invest in? I invest in hotels so that I don't have to pay a hotel.
True.
Yeah. So they'll invest in hotels. And because you could always get somebody's house, and that's where exposure comes in. When you're involved in the industry, you're seeing the things that are possible. But if you had exposure, you would realize that shooting in people's houses is really not the is not the best. You're better off using sound stages where you don't have 4 walls, you have 3, and then you can collapse the walls depending on which angle. You can even go from above, and if there wasn't a ceiling, do you understand? The kinds of things that we had in NTA stations, in their Studio A, Studio B, and things like that, So people were not investing in those. It was more of investing in content, investing in distribution. Even distribution wasn't invested in as such.
Will you blame it on our financial institutions? Because again, without looking as if I'm bashing them, I always struggle to understand why the banks always chase politicians. I just can't wrap my head around it. I don't know which bank was chasing Donald Trump or Joe Biden or any
government. Even if they're chasing them, you won't know.
No. They don't even do it. Like chasing them to donate to borrow them money for campaign. Because let's be honest, that's where most of the funds with the banks are going. It's either I want to take over the account of a state governor, I want to, sponsor his election so that when he becomes governor. Meanwhile, there are real sectors that could be developed that we can invest in, right? If the banks had come in to approach, let's say, Ogunde in those days, right? And say, okay, let's build a resort. Okay, you have the name, you have the brand, you have the idea. We're going to give you XYZ. Let's build this thing out. Let's have a contract, whatever it is. I'm not sure we'll be talking about this.
I agree with you in that respect. But I think the interest rates of commercial banks is insane. It doesn't work in our industry.
Yeah,
our industry needs patient capital. It's patient capital, equity investments.
But they could do that as well.
Yes, but
do equity.
Yes, equity.
Yes.
Equity investments. If they have patient, why not?
Yes.
That would be excellent for the industry. there's Del York.
Okay.
They've raised billions of dollars, but they didn't raise it here. They raised it from, they raised it from outside the country, from people who could see the vision, who could understand the vision, and maybe it's that we haven't found the language to unlock it for our commercial banks, so maybe that's where the problem lies, because it's an industry that is absolutely necessary for this nation, not only because we have a youth bulge, and it's an industry that can absorb a lot of it. Look at us. There are only two of us here. We have we already have 4 people.
Yeah, more than those of us.
More than those. Yes. And after that, you're still going to have other people who are going to be exactly. So it's an industry that absorbs a lot of people. But beyond that, it's the kind of stories that we tell. The stories that need to unite us. Yes, and a lack of understanding of how important this industry is, whether it's in it's in music, whether it's in fashion, whether it's in film, whether it's in theater. I mean, theater is one of the poorest and yet that's where everything. Theater is the queen of the entertainment, because everything springs from theater. Whether it's music, whether it's fashion, whether it's even film, whether whether it's expression, whether it's writing, it all springs from theater. To understand that if we want to deal with the identity crisis that we have as a people, this industry is key to be, and I like the fact that a lot of attention is being paid to it. We have, the creative economy and all that, but it's putting money in the right places. Yes, I think that's important. But what I will stress though is that please don't come to us with the 40% interest rate. even if we take it, we're not going to pay back. 40% for any business. To be honest with you, for any business, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. If you want, I mean, how do you? There's no business that can survive that.
It's insane.
So, but I mean, we need like a single digit interest rate and patient capital. That's what we need.
Patient capital.
Yes, very patient. Yes, lot of things. Yes.
Patient capital. Let's go to your fate, but I want to start with how conservative you've been. Is it the British background or what? You've been exceptionally conservative.
Really? Okay. Why
do
you say that?
I mean, with everything, right?
Okay.
You with your marriage, with your family, with your life, it's been very conservative compared to, of course, I mean, maybe it's your generation.
My poor generation, being blamed for everything. Okay.
Maybe it's your generation. Because you and I know people are a lot more out there, with, because you have the fame, but when people come close, they can see that you're just quite conservative and moderate about everything, right? And what's the lesson in that for the younger ones?
Well, I think I'm an actor. I mean, my core competence is performing. And so I need to study people. I need to understand people. So if I'm constantly performing, which is what being out there would be to be constantly performing. Then how do I get to study? My number one source of inspiration.
Wow.
I can't.
Yeah.
I need to be able to study people to also reflect on life and things like that, because that then helps with the kind of work that one does, you know. So I don't think longevity, which is something that I like. I want to have a long career.
Yes, absolutely. And you've had it.
There's still more. I'm just in my early 60s. So there's still several years of work with, good
absolutely.
health and sound mind and all that and abundance, So I don't think it's people's business, what I need to hold something of me.
Of me, yeah.
That's important to me. So they can see, they're welcome to my professional life. They're welcome to it. But things that are personal, I mean, sometimes part of what the idea to shock, is to get more followers. If you have more followers, then you will have then your brands come after you because you have those followers. But I think it's always to look at the flip side. The incredible okay, let's say I'm a young lady and to shock, I'm going to go out naked, I'll take off my shirt and be in my bra, whatever. And then several years later, I have kids.
Thank you.
And how do I explain those? So it's always trying to
and you can't
balance that.
You're going to age at some point. So if you are attracting the fame based on showing off, what happens when you're 60, when you're 70, when you're 80, and you and your husband have enjoyed. I
think as young people, we all. I mean, I have to thank God that we didn't have all the social media when I was younger. Because one did some pretty wild things. Okay. But I think also one just needs to pull back. Yeah. It's very important. Youth. My mom always used to say, youth needs to remember that youth is not going to last.
Youth need to remember that youth is not going to last.
Yes.
Wow. Powerful. So your faith, does that also reflect? And I can imagine how much that has played out in recent years. I was sharing with you behind the camera how people come out with fake news, about you, about your husband, and not realizing the impact of those things on the family. And Nigerians can be nosy. We can be pushy. I always say this, that Nigerians are bullies by design. And sometimes the biggest bully that wins. And if you can study things, you see situations where everybody's just bullying each other, right? And it seems like the biggest bully. How do we get better as a society? Show empathy, understand when people need their privacy. Don't push out fake news on things that really have impact.
I think it's thoughtlessness.
Thoughtlessness.
Yes, it is thoughtlessness. It's thinking of me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
And all three of them must get what they want. Me, myself, and I.
So there are three.
Yes, there are three of them. And you want so you're clickbaiting.
Yes.
So you're creating this fake news just so that you can clickbait and get all the following that and the sad thing about it is that and that's why I say it's thoughtless.
Yeah.
Because you're not thinking of the people that you're impacting.
Exactly.
When it comes to what happened with us, with my husband, it's the fact that we know he's at home with us, so we know he's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
But members of the family who are probably
in the UK or US,
who are in other parts of the world, members of the family who are in other parts of Lagos, and are thinking to themselves, "Oh my word, I've got to pack up everything. I've got to go and see, go to their house," and they're reorganizing their own schedule to get to us, and then their telephones. Forget our telephone. That is because after the first experience, we learned to turn off our phone. I'm not going to go through all that harassment, So for them, they're getting phone calls upon phone calls upon phone calls, and it's like a disruption of their lives as well. So it's not just us that you're affecting. You're affecting other families' lives as well. It's unconscionable. It's unconscionable. And I pray that, they learn to be thoughtful.
Yeah.
That's it. They learn to be thoughtful, because how can you be a leader? We're talking about leadership. If you do not care about the next person, if you do not respect the other person, there's no way you can be a leader.
True.
You really can't. True. And, there's a danger that we have, that we've exhibited over the years. Yeah. A dangerous phenomenon, let's put it like that we've exhibited over the years, where everything is blamed on the leadership in Aso Rock. Anything is going wrong, it's whoever is in power in Adu. The leadership we've had, failed leadership we've had. Where are we as citizens? How are we self-governing ourselves?
True.
How are we self-governing ourselves? So the leadership is not just leadership in power. How are we as leaders in school? How are we as leaders, as teachers of our classrooms? How are we as leaders, as head of our corporations? How are we as leaders, as head of our families? Leadership in all those areas, in all sectors. So it's not just leadership, political leadership. I mean, political leadership has a lot to play, but, leadership in all. So if you cannot be thoughtful. There's something that the Bible says, love your neighbor as yourself. So when you do those things to other people, your love of self it doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
That's
powerful.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, thank you. And it's powerful because a lot of time people don't even know that when you're too critical of other people, it's a pointer of actually something eating you inside, So you're just reacting it on others, but it's really more of you hating yourself than even the other people. You just, it's just a transfer of aggression.
Yes.
Which is, but how has the place of faith helped you in these years of, because I know it's been tough.
It's really, that's a very interesting question.
Yeah.
Because I come from a family of great-grandfather bishop, grandfather bishop. So grew up in the Christian fold.
Yeah.
And but I think one of my mainstays in my faith is my mom. You know, she had a lot of challenges. And, you know, like I said, my grandfather, you know, her dad was a bishop. And I remember once, you know, she told me how she went to him and said, "Daddy, please pray for me." And my grandfather said, "There is no prayer that I can pray for you that you cannot pray for yourself."
Wow.
The relationship is between you and God, you know.
Powerful.
So just, you know, I learned that very early, you know. And also I learned from her because my dad had, you know, was ill for a long time. And, you know, my mom always used to have her favorite verse was, "They who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as in eagles. They shall run and not go weary. They shall walk and will not faint." You know, and it was always, no matter what it was, she would say, "Those who wait upon the Lord."
Can you imagine she screaming it? "Those who wait upon the Lord."
Never screaming, just always, sometimes in tears, but sometimes, you know, just you know, she would just say, "As always, those who wait upon you know." So I learned a lot, you know, from just watching her, from just being with her. And so, I mean, when I've had my challenges too, it's always to go before the Lord with them, and also to lean on friends. I have an incredible, they're not a wide circle, but they're a very close circle. Very close circle of friends that we can pray together, that we can cry on each other's shoulders, that we can ask each other for grace, you know, ask for grace, multiplication of grace, to be able to walk whatever path that we're all, or whatever journey that we're all on, you know. And I think that's where faith is. And, you know, what I also love about that is the sense of humor that you get with it. You know, one of the things I love is being able to laugh. It really helps you on the journey. Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful.
Thank you.
I mean, talking about political leadership, you were named one of the President Tinubu's I think member of the campaign council or something.
Yes, I headed the women's wing of, you know, the entertainment section.
Okay,
yes, I was the chairman of that. Yes.
So first of all, were there backlash? And
of course there was a lot of backlash, but hey, I think I have a right to support whoever it is that I want to support, and I have no apologies whatsoever. Yes.
Now, I mean, looking at what has happened in terms of policies over the years, what is your opinion? Do you think people should just be patient? There's hope, the horizon?
I think there's some interesting developments that have come over the years.
Yeah.
One of them is something that Vice President Oshibado used to speak about when he was vice president. He would say the trust quotient has totally diminished. There's no, you know, the trust in leadership has totally eroded over the years.
Absolutely.
So that now, you know, when there's leadership that's doing, you know, that they can't fix everything within their tenure. They can't, but they're doing their best. You know, the population has kind of said, okay, we're holding every blink, we're holding it to account. And so when it comes to, first of all, let me backtrack on some things. When we had our Fourth Republic in 1999, it was good. We had practically 16 years of PDP. But I don't think you can run a democracy on one leg. I think it's very important that there's another party that is a strong opposition, and that party needs to be tested, you know? So I've always been right from inception, AD, AC, whatever, whatever.
It's opposition.
Whatever they emerged as at any point in time, I was I had always been. I'm very much a party person.
Yeah.
And so when there was this amalgamation of opposition parties to form the APC, I thought brilliant, and then, one worked at that time with Professor Ibrahim Gambari and went around the 6 geopolitical zones, meeting with Shagari, meeting with Kwakwanso, meeting with... yes.
I didn't know that part of you.
Oh, yeah. One did all that. And I remember there was this part of us was a gentleman, Reverend Fieron, who is now in the he's the vice Archbishop of Canterbury in Great Britain. Wow. Amazing man. He was part of our group.
Wow.
He was a professor, he was a bishop.
Wow.
I think, yes, he wasn't a reverend. I think he was a bishop then. Yeah. Bishop, he was a Bishop Fieron then. He was a bishop. But he had studied Islamic studies. He was a professor of Islamic studies. Yes.
Wow.
So I remember once we went to River State. This was before the elections of, APC, PDP, when APC was first run. Yeah. We went to River State and there was a meeting of clerics and pastors, that had been called. Yes. And then you would have a pastor quote something from the Bible as to where he did, and then the bishop would say and quote something, and I said, yes, but the Bible says this. And then a cleric would quote something from the Quran, and he would say, yes, but the Quran says this. It was brilliant. It was an amazing time. Incredible man.
Wow.
And so, one had done all that, gone. And it was, for me, it was an eye-opener. I saw various parts of Nigeria and all that. So for me, I've always believed that, so for me, the way I interpreted things was this, that we had a party that was in power, that was now having to be in opposition for the first time when we had Buhari coming. Yes. And then we had a party, newly formed party, being in power. That had not been in power. True. And so each was, and like all, we're learning, we're young, What I love is the fact that people do not feel that they have to take it. They speak up. People are speaking up. I think that's very important. Yeah. I think where we are now is that we have to learn how to speak up without damaging the image of our country. Do you understand?
I like that.
Because I think sometimes we do it in such a way that young people then there's a identity crisis. If Nigeria is not good, then what am I? Where am I? Where do I belong? But when we're criticizing, we're criticizing because we want it to be better.
True.
But at the same time, we need to be able to do that criticism in saying that yes, Nigeria is beautiful. It's amazing. Yes, it's beleaguered, but it will work if we all work for it. If we all work together. Of course, there are hard conversations that we need to have. Yeah. Sometimes we avoid them, True. And but we do have to have them. I think this current dispensation of APC, the policies have been very brave. I know people talk about removing the subsidy without putting some cushion.
Yes.
The subsidy was removed before Buhari left.
True.
Do you understand?
True.
What was he?
True.
What was he supposed to do? So there were some decisions we should have taken. Yeah. But those who had gone before, in their wisdom, didn't take it.
Yeah, they were scared. Anyway.
I don't know.
They were scared.
So they're taking it now.
They were scared.
They're taking those decisions now.
Yeah.
What are the things that need to be done? People are beginning to see a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
It's people are beginning to see it.
Like fuel price coming down, then going up.
So what needs it's that what we should pray for is that it quickly trickles down so that people can afford to eat. Because people can't afford to eat. That's the thing. And that's important.
I mean, why didn't you take any political appointment? You seem to love politics. Of all these topics, the one that got you really excited was this politics. And you didn't contest election. You didn't take any political appointment. Why?
To be honest with you, I do my fighting through my work.
Oh.
Yes. There was a play that I wrote that deals with corruption. It's called Digging for Gold. Yes, I wrote it years ago.
Is it on YouTube?
No. It's a stage play.
Wow.
So a lot of work that I do, I use it's through my work. It's easier for me, to use
taking
my work.
Political position. Will you ever consider it?
It's a terrain that one needs to understand very well, and I think I understand my own terrain very well. Yes.
Interesting. So I have 3 fun questions for you. By the way, I have a role for you.
Okay.
My late mom died of cancer.
Oh my word!
She was
I'm so sorry.
An amazing woman. And she did everything for her children. So I have a movie coming called Alari.
Okay.
So
Alari.
I've told.
What does Alari mean? That's a name I would imagine.
Alari means.
Oh, okay.
Like you become successful or wealthy as you see it. Allah. Almost Olari, Alari. So Alari is like our Oriki. So we're naming the movie Alari.
Very unusual.
Yes.
Alari.
So I've told the writer as well, the person who played my mom has to be you.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
I've told that it has to be you. They have no choice.
Thank you so much.
So 3 fun questions. Now, I know you act, both movies and stage, but who are your 3 favorite actors?
Bimbo Akitola.
Really? Hey, number 1?
Bimbo Akitola immediately springs to mind. There's a young lady called Omono Imovio. Most people don't know her, but she's a on stage.
Wow.
The Bimbo Akitola is the fact that in Bimbo Akitola becomes, whether it's stage, whether it's film, she just becomes the character. And the other one is you said 3. I can mention 50, but 3.
Yes.
The other person is Ireti Doyle. I love the way Ireti is so, the incredible stillness with which she then communicates.
Yes.
She's incredibly powerful.
Wow.
So those are my
Why
3.
are they all women? No male?
No, you said...
You picked 3 and you didn't even pick 1 male.
Those are my 3.
Okay. Who are your 3 favorite musical artists?
Hey, don't put me in trouble with my children. Teddy, yeah, I love Teddy. I want to be a millionaire. I love millionaire. When I turned 60, they actually got her to sing for me.
Wow.
Yes, I love the lady who sang Rush. Yes,
Arya Star. They will know that.
I love her song.
Hey, shout out to Arya Star.
Yes, I really do. Because especially that song Rush, it is so nuanced.
What's this? Can you play the song if you guys have it on your YouTube?
da 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 da. You know, so there's a lot of philosophy behind it, and then there's a lot of sensuality as well. Wow. It's a mix. Yeah. It's a mix. I love it. I think it's really, you know, and the way she sings it and the way she dances, I really, I wish you'd use more than 1 year to make up you know, you know. So and then Simi. I really like Simi. I really do. I think there's just such an innocence in her voice and you know, her performances. Yeah. Again, beautiful.
3 female. We men will have mercy on you. Not even one male.
Don't be annoyed.
I'm protesting on behalf
of the men, please.
Actors, male, and then artists.
Yes.
Okay, the third one is your 3 favorite comedians. Or 3 favorite pastors. So you pick one. No, just pick one. In case you are not into comedy. Then you can pick pastors. But if you
Pastor Tony Rapo, Pastor Chris Delvan, Pastor Itwa. States, I can reel them out.
Okay.
Because so I listen to
it's them. It's obvious that you lean more to the pastors than the comedians.
Those 3. Yes.
Wow. Amazing. Thank God the male finally.
They came in there. Yes.
We finally got the male in pastoring.
Yes. They're amazing. They're amazing men to listen to. You know, they're very kingdom focused. Yeah. They're also very nation focused.
Yes,
I love that about them. And how we as citizens, you know, as that belong to the citizen of, you know, to the kingdom of Christ, as citizens of the kingdom of Christ, what our role is in nation building, you know. Pastor Tony has this amazing movement called God Bless Nigeria. Yes. The God Bless Nigeria Church. So I find it impossible. You know, you can be saying whenever people are saying no, I'm black, because there's so much power in the tongue. You know, so how do you want to eat the fat of the land, the good of the land, when what you're throwing is curses? It has to be blessings, and it will yield its increase to you.
Wow.
Yes.
Powerful.
Thank you.
Thany you for coming. Any final words, advice to everyone watching?
I'm not very good on advice.
Why?
I'm not very good on advice. But I you know, Nigeria at 65. We're 65 this year. We've had an incredible journey. We could have had a better journey if we look at what happened with Singapore that had that had kind of traveled our own trajectory. But we shouldn't forget that Singapore is the size of Ikoyi, and it is.
I mean, I was there last year, and you're right. Actually.
It's the size of Ikoyi, you know, and we have this huge land space. We have this huge land space. We have this country that is so blessed with mineral resources.
Yeah.
Now we have human resources, but not enough. We need to skill our people so that our people also become human resources. All right. But we shouldn't beat ourselves up too much that we're not where we think we should be.
True.
Let's just, all together.
Yeah.
I really get upset when they're telling people on one side of the divide to tighten their belts, and other people are loosening theirs. I don't think that's fair.
True.
True. Let's all work together.
Yeah.
Because this country is so blessed. There's no state in Nigeria that doesn't have more than one mineral resource.
True.
And if all they have is two, one of those resources is gold. Do you understand? That's how rich we are.
We are
wealthy.
Yeah.
And we have there's no reason why our people should be poor.
True.
So we need to together make this country work.
Amen.
The leadership can't do it alone. The citizens can't do it alone.
Yeah.
But together we can. And it will be beautiful. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, amazing of course, she's popularly known Auntie Joke, right? Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. And I hope that your message resonates with everyone to
Amen.
Work together and build a great society.
Amen.
At least I've found something that excites you aside acting. Politics.
Yes. I've always enjoyed, which is what I found very alarming in the last two dispensations, where you cannot have a political argument.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to kill everybody else. Why? Yes.
We should be able to disagree to agree.
And just agree to disagree.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that you have to now have to destroy whatever it is that you destroy you as a but it's not necessary.
It's not. It's not. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Guys, that's the end of another beautiful episode of the Leadership Podcast with me, Dr. Stephen Akintayo. I look forward to see you in another beautiful episode. Bye-bye.